You are listening to Productivity Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after productivity coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives entrepreneurs the straight talk on personal productivity. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the Productivity Specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to Productivity Straight Talk. Today is episode 277, From Project Management to Business Management, a client case study with Anabeth McConnell. If you're a business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate your productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you joined me. I'm looking forward to bringing my guest and client, Anabeth, here today for a conversation about her entrepreneurial journey and her experience of working with me inside my Leverage Lab program. Anabeth McConnell, owner of Inbound Design Partners, is a brand and web strategist with 12 years of experience helping hundreds of companies build a better sales funnel framework that attracts, captures, and converts higher quality leads. By using both inbound marketing and story brand methodologies, Anabeth works with SMBs to create user-centered brand messaging, conversion-focused websites, and lead generation assets aimed at connecting the right message to the right audience at the right time. A HubSpot solution partner, certified digital marketing strategist, and story brand certified guide, Anabeth strives to help clients attract, capture, and convert ideal leads, grow their customer base, and increase their bottom line. As a native Texan, she enjoys teasing her Missouri-born husband that Texas has better barbecue, but must admit, enjoying family time at the lake of the Ozarks does help her get better adjusting to living in the Midwest. During my conversation with Anabeth, you will discover why Anabeth's business felt all-consuming, the strategically made shifts she made to change all that, what challenges she faced personally and professionally prior to joining Leverage Lab, her experience of getting coached versus watching others get coached, what's next for Anabeth, the pivot she's intent on making, and so much more. I just love a good behind-the-scenes story and learning from the experience of other business owners and their entrepreneurial journey. So stay tuned. And now, let's meet our guest and get to the straight talk. Welcome to Productivity Straight Talk, Anabeth. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic, Amber. It's been a great start of my week already.
That's so good. We got to chat beforehand, and boy, are we in for a great conversation today. So, Anabeth, I wanted to thank you so much for being here today. We're going to be diving into your story of your business and how we started working together and what that looks like for you. But before we do, I would love for you to let our listeners in on who you are outside of your bio and a bit more about your business so we can get to know you.
Oh, awesome. Well, thanks. Well, I'm kind of the accidental business owner, right? I've had some businesses here and there, none that I felt as passionate about. And so I went back to just being an employee, and I've gotten a degree in web design. I have a degree in project management. I spent 10 years in the military. Then I started work as a project manager for a web dev company. And from there, I learned that skill of how to project management web design projects. And then I moved into another web design company that was remote. So now I had to learn how to be a remote person, right? It's a totally different set of skills. And I worked there for about 3 years. And then the business owner had some family challenges and she was going to shut the business down. But I had finally found my passion, right?
Yeah.
I was loving this space. I was loving the company I was with. And so I was like, hey, rather than shut it down, can I just buy it from you? And so she,
wow.
Yes. And so here I had this company that I've already had a lot of client communication with, connection with. And then another employee, we decided to go in as partners and we bought the business. It was like a dream come true, right? I was in a space that I was very passionate about. I had to learn that mind shift to switch from employee to owner. I'm not going to lie, that took probably about 6 months to a year before it really sunk in that, I don't work a 9 to 5, right? I really got to be able to kind of integrate this. But we do WordPress, HubSpot, web design. We also do some branding from a story brand methodology. We are working with clients and building their lead capture funnels, with their lead magnets and being able to help them. And we tend to focus a lot on service-based businesses. And so these are other people who are B2Bs is usually who we work with. And so a lot of them in this space, they need that help, not just build me a website. They need more of that interaction of, how does the website work for my business?
Right. And how does it all work together? Right.
Exactly.
Yes.
And so that's what I love focusing it on. It's not just, I build it and you go on with your life. It's how do we make your website part of your overall marketing strategy?
Excellent. I mean, you described that whole accidental business owner perfectly, right? You are exceptionally skilled. You love what it is you do. And then for real, wake up one day and you're a business owner, right?
Yep.
And so switching from, the employee mindset to the CEO business mindset and thinking is huge. That is actually something I work with my clients on a lot with, because your role changes, your identity changes, where you're investing your time changes. And that's not just a snap of the finger. You transition from one to the next. So I'm so glad that you shared that. And I think we're going to kind of dive into a little bit more of that through our conversation today. How many years ago was that you bought the company?
2 years now that we've been actual owners.
Okay, excellent. And why don't you start off with, what did your business look like and what were some of the challenges you were experiencing right before you decided to join Leverage Lab and work with me in that program?
Yes. So again, I have a degree in project management. So, I know how to project manage a job, a project from start to finish, retrospective, all of that. And I assumed that I could carry that skill set over to being a business owner, but I quickly realized there's a whole lot more to project managing an individual project to project managing my business, right?
Yes.
You talked about the different roles, right? Before I was a project manager, a mom, a wife, and probably a few other little minor roles, but now I'm like a marketer, a salesperson, an admin person, and all of these different hats. And I was getting to this place where I was on the computer all day long, right? Mm-hmm. My husband was complaining because there I was, 11 o'clock at night, and he's like, when are you going to come to sleep? And, my daughter's over there, Mom, come play with me. And I'm like, no, I need to do this. And I spent so much time behind a computer. And I was struggling with, how do I manage my time? How do I get all of this done and feel proud of what I'm doing, instead of when it's mom time, I'm focused on work. And when I'm work, I'm feeling guilty about not spending time with my daughter and my husband. And so that's where I was at, I loved the business. I was so excited to do it, but it was consuming me.
Yes. That did not feel good.
No, not at all.
And I actually want to, recognize you that if you've been in business for 2 years and we've been working together for quite a while, like, this is a challenge that you identified and decided I'm going to fix, like, early on. And I just want to commend you because, there are people listening that may have been in business for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. And it's somewhere along that journey that they came to the same realization as you, is like, I'm done feeling guilty. I'm done feeling like I have to work 24/7 around the clock and torn in all the places. So, good kudos to you to recognizing that that's what you needed to I would, and I'm going to assume, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what you needed to feel more joyful as a business owner because you were excited about this opportunity.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Now, Amber, I would give some of that credit back to you because I had been listening to your podcast like way before I even considered Leverage Lab. I do actually remember the first time I got the email about Leverage Lab, and this is when I was just an employee, and I was like, nah, that's not for me. You know, I mean, I didn't see the benefit whereas just an employee at that time.
Right.
It's when I became a business owner, that's when I was like, oh my gosh, the skill sets that I need, this is what she talked about in Leverage Lab. So the podcast has always helped me, even just as an employee. But now when I go back to the episodes, I look at it from a different mindset. Right?
Yes.
Yeah. And yeah. So
no,
I really
I appreciate it. No, and I'm really glad you said that because I just want to speak because I do talk about Leverage Lab here a lot on the podcast, but you actually just articulated something that I don't think I've articulated before. And it's that, yes, there is, the skill set of time management and, learning to plan, but it is really more than that. It's learning the skill set of being a business owner, the fundamentals of learning how to manage yourself, your time, your team. And you're right, that program would not have been a fit alignment for you as an employee, but 100% once you put your, business owner CEO hat on, right?
Absolutely.
That's great. Thank you for highlighting that. Okay, so let's start with you joined me inside Leverage Lab. And the reason we're talking today is because you're so vocal inside our group about how many wins you're having and what this has done for you. Where did you start first? So when you dove in, was it first coaching sessions? Did you, start in the master classes? What was your experience?
So I had taken your time management main simple a couple of years ago. So I already kind of had that process.
Foundation. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, foundation, exactly, kind of established. And it was really quick and easy for me to kind of take that learning and apply it as a business owner, breaking down my marketing, my sales, my time blocks type of thing, right? So when I joined Leverage Lab, I did start in the mindset aspect because I feel like I have a lot of the skills, but it's the mindset aspect that just trips me up every single time. So it is the business by design, right? And learning to overcome some of those preconceived mindsets that I had. So I did start with that. I did do a refresher through the time management, right? Because again, I had to switch from looking at it from an employee mindset to a business owner mindset. And I'm still diving into the rest of it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of good stuff in there. So the fact that you said you started with the mindset. So the very first masterclass is the destination by design, which is, what is your goals? What is your vision of success? Really getting clear about that. And then the very first pillar is mindset. And that's because it's going to be the through line through every other skill set you learn. And you're 100% right. We were talking before we recorded on this, and I was asking you kind of what do you think the gap was between being able to, at a high level, project manage for clients and then feel like you're getting stuck in project managing your own business. And I think we both agreed that it was really the mindset was kind of the barrier between it, because as we kind of started pulling that away, I remember in coaching sessions, you'd be like, yes, I know that. I do that for my clients. Okay, I'll do it for me too. Like, I got this, right?
Absolutely. Yes, exactly. It really is. It's like you tend to forget some of these fundamental things, right?
Yes.
And then when somebody else points it out, it's like, why did I not think of that?
Yeah. So I have a theory about this. And the theory is from a lot of years of experience, but the service that you're providing your clients, it's project management, but actually I think you can rename it of like, you're not letting them get overwhelmed. You're like holding their hand through a very specific process, right?
Yes.
So, but in our own businesses, if we're looking through the lens of we're feeling overwhelmed, we're experiencing overwhelm, it's very hard to grab those tools out of our toolbox. And so when we have had coaching sessions, I think that sometimes it's just been around like, well, what could your schedule look like? Not what should it look like? And where are your highest value activities and what might not be as important now? And just like pulling back one by one of trying to reduce the overwhelm or the perceived overwhelm so that you can grab those tools out of your toolbox. Would you agree that it was like the mindset of seeing things through a lens of like, there's just too much, there's so much going on?
Absolutely. And I do feel like, as a business owner, we all experience overwhelm, right? But as a business owner, everything's important, right?
Yes.
And
I get that.
One of the things that sticks in my mind all the time, and I'm sorry, I don't know the full story, but it's your horse analogy.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
About trying to figure out, do you work on all the things a little bit at a time and not really seeing a whole lot of forward movement? Or do you take one thing, push that through to the finish line, then focus on the next thing? So sometimes when I get into that overwhelm, that's what I think about. I was like, okay, which horse needs to go first to push through?
Okay, I'm glad that analogy. So that was probably one of my random stories that come off the top of my head when I'm coaching and teaching. So for those of you that are listening to the podcast, the image I had in my head was being at the carnival where you have those water guns and you have to shoot your water gun at the target to make the horse get to the finish line. And what I view is that as business owners, we're like, no, every horse has to get to the finish line. So we take our water gun and we just start spraying all the different little targets and they all move a little bit, instead of saying, no, that horse, i.e. that project, right? That goal, I'm putting all my time, energy, and attention. Those are your resources. But at the carnival, your resources is water. And then you just putting it all there so that you can get a return on that investment. And, it's a great analogy and it feels like it could be that simple, but there's a lot of mindset where it's like, okay, can I be confident I'm choosing to bet on the right horse?
Yes.
And it's so vital, right? Because if you never get that horse or i.e. that project to the finish line, you don't get a return on the investment. And so when you're trying to get all the horses down to the finish line, what you get is not a return on the investment and you're tired and you're exhausted and quite frankly, a lot of half-assed projects. So it's very, very frustrating for our mindset. And so I love that. Yes, that is a great analogy. And that's the full story that she was referring to. And so now you pick your horse, right?
Yep.
And you pick your horse. And what does picking your horse look like? Like let someone that's listening in, does that mean like your time, it shows up on your time blocks? Like how does it look like when you pick your horse?
So I will actually tell you, this is one of the lessons that I'm still in the process of fully embracing, right? It's one of the reasons why the coaching has been so important to me, because it helps me see it from an outside perspective to make sure, am I focusing on the right thing? When we had our CEO, business day, talking about the breakdown of, okay, here's my quarterly goals, break it down to what's my monthly, and now let's break it down even further. That really helped, especially when we break it down to the different roles. So I'm still in the process of really learning that and embracing it, but it's helped me see it from a sense of focus rather than the overwhelm.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And so you guys have decided to strategically make a shift in your business, which added a huge workload. So if you want to share a little bit about that, and then what has been that experience now that you've gotten those tools in your toolbox on how to, project manage your own business and prioritize and pick your horse, among some other things. Share with us what's going on and how you're approaching that and how you think that's different than had this been 6 months ago or a year ago.
Well, I will tell you, the first thing is focusing on, how to say no, right?
Mm-hmm.
To be able to say no to the things that are not focused on the goal that we have, right? We established a goal of what we want to do. And so I need to make sure all of these other things I can say no to. It's teaching me how to delegate, right? So I have my horse that I'm focused on, right? This is my skill set, zone of genius. This is what I'm going to progress forward. But I have a business partner and I'm like, okay, this is what you are going to project manage, right? This is your baby to push to the finish line. And then we have, a couple of other team members. So before that, I will tell you, more than likely, I would have had to try to take on all of the projects myself. Right?
Wow. That's a huge improvement, right? Like,
oh, yes.
For all the reasons, time, energy, like all of it. Okay. And so you would have just by default because you thought you could or you should have, like why do you think by default you would have taken on and not delegated?
Because I'm used to being the project manager. I'm used to the one being in charge of everything. So now I have learned, number one, how to delegate better, right?
Yeah.
And that's a hard skill set, I think, for anybody. As a mom, trying to make sure you tell your kids, hey, you go clean up your room instead of cleaning it for them,
Yeah.
right? And I've had to learn how to delegate more because I've realized I don't have the time. I can't do it all. Or if I try to do it all, it's done poorly.
Right.
And so that's a big reason of why I've like broken it up to what am I going to focus on? This is my project that I'm responsible for.
Okay. Yeah. And then you have a bigger goal. So you have, early on, we learned that you have this 5-year, maybe 5 plus or minus goal. And I have that in my head right now as you're saying that. And so I would ask you, is that 5-year goal, you can share it if you'd like, the reason that you were able to prioritize learning to delegate and prioritize not being the person that does everything, right? Like, because you took the time to get clear about what's next for you and your business.
Absolutely. So I am probably about 15 years older than my business partner, right? So I look at things a little bit from a different perspective than he does. And I'm already looking towards retirement. What am I going to do with those years? And where do I want to be? I do not want to be working till I'm 65 or 70, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to be completely away from it because, I might be bored, but I want to travel. I want to explore. I want to be able to do different things. And so I need a business that I can still earn some income from, but I don't need to be in it all the time. So I'm trying to set myself up to where I can pull out of the client work and be able to focus more on the leadership work, and not just leadership of my team, but also the thought leadership for my clients, right? I have these skills. I've been in the design industry since 1994, right?
Mm-hmm.
For a really long time. I've got a lot of history, a lot of skill set, and I want to pass that on. But I feel like I struggle with being able to do that as well as managing my clients. And that's when that goal came up, is like, okay, I know a thought leadership is a major passion of mine. How do I get there?
Yeah.
That's when I was like, okay, I need a team. And not only that, the thought leadership, but I get to mentor the next generation, I guess you could say.
Absolutely. And so as long as you felt like you were tied with the decisions you made and your schedule and responsibilities tied to working in your business and not on your business, there truly wasn't, while this seed of passion was in there wasn't a path forward of like, how do you have the time to be a thought leader? How do you have time to, travel or take time off? And so those are the incremental steps that I believe that bigger goal has been pulling you through all the work you've done in, your business, but through Inside Leverage Lab, correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Being able to focus out the time blocks for, this is when I'm working on marketing. This is when I'm working on client work. This is on sales work. The goal is right now my calendar may have bigger blocks for client work because I'm doing more of that. But the goal is that is going to shrink.
Yep.
And then I'll be able to expand on, say, my marketing time blocks. Right. So
Yeah.
I can record those YouTube videos or get that podcast going or things like that, because I don't have to do the client work. So that's where I'm seeing where Leverage Lab has shown me the time management essentials. It's also taught me the delegation essentials.
And go ahead. Yes. No.
I was just going to say, and learning to say no.
Oh,
right?
I love that one. Yes.
Yes. That has been crucial to even opening up my time now.
Right. I'm so sorry. I was going to interrupt. I got myself so excited. I was going to say, and you're focusing on SOPs, and it was a project you were, heavy on. You took a little bit of a pause. You were working on some other horses, and then now you're purposely picking that back up. But the SOPs, the processes, the checklist, like looking at your business in that way I invited you to do so because that truly is the how you delegate properly, the how you get yourself out of the day-to-day. And so I know that's been a big focus as well for you.
Yeah, we have a new project manager who has recently kind of started with us, and it was interesting. That was a really hard role to fill because obviously that was filling my old shoes. So
Ooh,
I'm very,
yes.
very picky about who that person's going to be. And it really did come from, trying to get all the stuff out of my head about how I managed projects to be able to turn those reins over to somebody else. And I was like, if I was getting upset because they weren't doing it how I wanted them to do it, but I didn't have a documentation for that.
Right. They're not a mind reader.
Exactly. I was getting upset because they couldn't read my mind. So developing these SOPs has helped ease being able to turn that over to her. And then, not gonna lie, she's also been really good because she's read through the SOPs and she was like, "Hey, have you considered doing it like this instead?" And I'm like, "What? I've been doing it like this for years, and now you want to." But so she's been able to bring some valuable insight because it's documented, right? I'm not just telling her. I was like,
Yeah.
"Here, this is the idea," and we've been able to continue to refine those SOPs.
That is so beautiful. Okay, so I didn't know that, right? And my head is spinning because I'm like, okay, and when you hire your next project manager, look how much better it's like 2.0 on the processes and now it's collaborative. And again, maybe it actually feels good that you don't have to have that just on your shoulders. You're like, wow, someone else is collaborating on how to serve our clients at a higher level. It's not just me. You're experiencing what that looks like to grow the team and expand.
Yeah, it does. It's a weight lifted off my shoulder. I mean, I'm still my skill set of project managing, but realizing that, okay, I can pass that mantle on to somebody else and focus my zone of genius on other things that I'm just as good at, like I was in project management. And so yes, huge weight lifted off my shoulder, and also learning things from other people's perspectives, right? Just because I've been in project management and have a degree in it doesn't mean I'm the know-all.
Right. And I just want to speak to this for those of you that are listening. Like, that was a 2-minute blurb of like, hey, I hired a project manager, but you got to know, like, just think about that for a second. That was her primary role. She had to find her own identity. She had to be confident that she's stepping into new responsibilities, a new role, and truly cut ties from that, which I want to just highlight this because for so many, that is a very scary place to be, but it's essential for the next evolution and growth of the business. And so again, I want to compliment you and give you more than just the 2-minute spiel because I know it wasn't that easy to strategically make that decision and move through that. And I'm glad that that turned out so well for you.
Appreciate that. Yes, you were totally right. It was a challenge, but the relief I feel is pretty awesome.
Right. I'm just thinking like, for those of you that are listening, my question to you would be, what would it take to fire yourself from your current role? Like, just sit with that question for a second. Like, what would it take for you to fire yourself from your current role? And what would that do for the business? Like, what's that new role? For many, it's so hard to think about what's next because the now is so consuming. That was a word you used earlier, like all consuming. When you're in a role that you may have grown out of, or you can serve the business in a different or better way, it's really hard to pull yourself up and out of the trees, the forest, to see what's next. And that's what you did, is you invited yourself. And I believe you did that through getting clear one day, I don't know, a couple weeks, however long it took you to get clear about what does 5 years from now look like. And that was able to pull you out probably a little more confidently from that role of like, yep, I've grown to the next role in the company.
Absolutely, yes. And it's something that I also can share with my husband so that he shares that with me so that, he understands. Yes. I don't plan on being stuck to a computer all the time, because that's one of his worries is, how are we going to be able to travel if you're always working here? And I'm like, nope, this is what this is what I'm building towards.
Yeah, this is the plan. Yeah, absolutely. Okay. I love that. Well, I also wanted to highlight something. We had a coaching session at the first of the year. It was a group coaching session. And I remember you, but there was a couple others that were echoing something very similar. And for me as a coach, it brought so much joy. And what you guys were saying, you specifically, because I'm talking to you, was that I was able to take guilt-free time off for the holidays. like completely off, like off the radar. And guess what? We were all raising our hands. You're like, and the business is fine. Right. And so it was share with us what that was like, why you made that decision and why you think that it worked out so well when maybe 6 months before you're like, what, take a week off, 2 weeks, like however long you took, like that's unheard of.
Yes. So I would definitely say pre-Leverage Lab, I was a major workaholic, right? Always had my mind on, what's going on and work. And this is even as an employee. This isn't just as a business owner, just in general. I'm always in work mode. And one of my reasons for joining Leverage Lab came back to the fact that I don't want to be considered just a workaholic. Right.
Yeah.
I have a 7-year-old. I have a 22-year-old and a 23-year-old, and I wanted to be known as a mom as well. And, I wanted to be known as a wife and all my other roles. And so I needed to learn the power of no, right? I needed to learn some time management to be able to explore how do I set myself up to where I don't feel guilty when I say I'm taking this time off. Right. So the Christmas holidays were coming up, and we have always, as a company, taken the 2 weeks off, kind of like the day before Christmas Eve all the way through New Year's. We've always taken that off, but I always worked. I wasn't doing client facing work, but there was always some kind of, I'm updating something and this time I was like, no, my daughter is out of school. I am going to do something. And so I made it known. I let all the clients know and everything. And the time came. And I will tell you, it was a little bit scary at first because I'm so used to being in there. But after that first day, I was like, oh, this is easy. I'm like, I'm happy. I'm not stuck at the computer, My daughter and I got to go do some of the, Christmas things, like going and looking at the Christmas lights. And I didn't have the fear, I guess, of my business was going to fail or who's going to handle this. I set myself up to be happy that I'm not at the computer. And I came back after the new year and I had a plan of action for what am I going to work on when I come back? And it all fell into place, right? Mm-hmm. So the guilt was not there. The guilt of not spending time on my business or, if I decided to work, I would have felt guilty because I wasn't spending time with her. So it was, oh my gosh, I can't tell you how relief it made me happy.
Yes. And it made me happy to hear it. And once you shared that, it got echoed through by several others in the group. And for me as your coach, it makes me so happy because productivity is about doing our best work. And it's a lot of people equate productivity with doing. And I think that I can confidently say that we're always balancing. It's actually, how are we showing up our best, both personally and professionally? Yeah. And it is a community of us supporting each other of like, you want to go do life with your daughter? You want to go take a week off? Yes. And how do you get ready for that? How do you prepare for that? Because I think some people are like, oh, I shouldn't. And so they kind of stick in that mindset. Yeah. Or it's the, I don't know how, it's all going to fall apart. Well, first of all, I'm going to tell you, don't do anything you think you should do. Do it because you want. And 2, then let's solve for that. Like come to a coaching session and tell me what's in the way between you taking a week off with your daughter and family and what actually needs to happen in the business. That's all strategy and making a plan so that you can live both. And I'm so happy you did all of that. And I think that having I would ask you, having a community where we're celebrating, not working, like it kind of seems like that wouldn't happen inside maybe Leverage Lab or working with a productivity coach. But we do that a lot because we're looking for what makes us joyful and more balanced.
I have to tell you, one of my favorite parts about Leverage Lab is the coaching. And a lot of that comes from, just like what you said, is hearing from other business owners and celebrating those types of wins. But it's also connecting with them on the level of we're sharing the same problems, right? I'm not off in my own little world and I'm the only one that's experiencing this. And it's so funny. I come prepared to the coaching sessions with questions or thoughts that I have, and somebody else always tends to beat me to it. And I was like, That's exactly what I'm experiencing. And so the community aspect from being able to share both your wins and your struggles with other people, that keeps me going all the time.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yes, it is crazy how each of you are in different industries. We have all types of industries represented, but because it's the through line of being a business owner and what does it mean to, build this business that's more joyful, it is really surprising how consistent the challenges are, right? And not even consistent from session to session, but it's almost like someone said, okay, this week we're all talking about this, because you guys would be like, oh my gosh, that was what I was going to talk about. Yes. It really is magical.
It is.
And so I wanted to ask you this. Can you share with me, a little bit about what did you experience when you watch somebody else getting coached on a similar topic that's helpful versus when you're getting coached? Would you say they're just different? Is one more valuable? Like, what's that experience? Because a lot of people may have not been in group coaching. And so they would think maybe I'm not getting enough coaching time, but would you find it just as valuable? And what does that look like for you when someone else is getting coached?
Yeah, what a great question. So I would say they're both extremely valuable but from a different way. Yep. So when I'm getting coached directly for a question or a situation that's specific to me, it's great because I'm getting answers that relate directly to me. When I am listening to somebody else get coached, it's kind of a win twofold. One, they're asking a question that I hadn't even considered yet. And it makes me think, I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's a really good question. I know it's Robin, right?
Yes.
She's always, I'm like, I did not even think about that. And so that's one perspective. And then it's also about, okay, you're coaching them directly, but I can learn, how do I apply that to my own struggle? Right.
Yeah.
So it's a win-win both ways.
Yeah, I agree. I've spoken to several members one-on-one, and something that I also hear about when you're watching somebody else get coached is it's almost like you're not in your own head because you're not on the spotlight, right? You're not thinking through your own challenges. And so it's almost like more comes in because you're like, it's kind of hard to explain. Not that you're off when you're getting coached, you are, but it's just, you're able to be detached. Like you're not wondering, am I asking the question right? Or am I telling all the details I need? You're just really able to hear the strategy and apply it where it makes sense to your business.
Absolutely.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Excellent. Alrighty. So what's next for you? So you're still in Leverage Lab. We're still working together, but I would just like to end with what's next and what can we look forward to seeing with you?
Oh my goodness. So we're in the middle of a pivot of our business and kind of focusing on some different services, some different target audiences. And so we are in that big, giant planning phase. And so we're going to be able to roll that out. We've always been focused on being HubSpot partners and doing web design on that platform, but now we're expanding to do WordPress services as well, including branding, your brand message. I just got my StoryBrand certification, so I am a certified StoryBrand guide. So I'm really putting a lot of focus into that, and so just really we're now, I guess, up leveling. Instead of just being a web design company, we're now going to take it to that next level and pretty excited about that. Also going to be, we just talked about today, taking off some more time because we're both very family oriented. So taking off some additional time and making that a priority, right? Instead of us always working, we want to make sure that we are taking that time and space to be with our families.
I love that. So for those listening, she just gave you her and. So she is leveling up her business. She is adding additional services, scope, team members, and making it a priority to take more time off. That's what I call the and method. What is your formula of, I want to accomplish this, this, and this in the business, and whatever that next part is? Because now that you just said that, you prioritize both. Every decision with your time, every decision with what you take on, every decision with what clients you say yes to and no to is all filtered through. Is it in alignment with taking more time off? Is it in alignment with growing the business and serving my clients at a higher level? I love that.
Awesome.
I loved hearing that. Okay. So if our listeners want to learn more about your amazing services, how would they reach out to you? How do they follow you? Where can they find you?
So the two best place, check out our website, inbounddesignpartners.com, or check me out over on LinkedIn. I promise I'm good. That's one of my project goals is to get better at LinkedIn, but it's another great way to get in contact with me. So it's Anabeth McConnell over on LinkedIn.
Oh, that's amazing. And so go find her and connect with her on LinkedIn, and then she'll be on LinkedIn and she can make that her next project, right?
Exactly. Yes. Give me some accountability.
That's right. Go find her on over there. So I just want to say thank you for being so gracious of sharing your story and sharing your experience of working with me inside Leverage Lab. I know it's going to serve so many people that are wondering what it is like. Is it for me? Am I alone in my challenges and struggles? And you know what? They're not, and neither are you. So thank you so much for sharing with us today.
Oh, absolutely, Amber. It was awesome. I appreciate you reaching out to me, and I love working with you.
Thank you. I've loved having you listen to Productivity Straight Talk. I sure hope you found today's conversation with Anabeth to be insightful and valuable. But I need to be straight with you. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So now that you've gotten to get a bit of behind the scenes of what it might look like of working with me inside Leverage Lab, is your next step, your next action step is to explore Leverage Lab? Well, I certainly hope so, because I would love to support you within that program. If this interests you, you can learn more and join us by heading on over to amberdelagarza.com/Leverage Lab. Be sure you're subscribed to Productivity Straight Talk. And if you have found today's episode to be valuable, don't keep it a secret. Share it with another fellow business owner friend who you think would enjoy it. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.